G'day, hello everybody, happy Friday, the 17th of July. It's Ask Andy Anything. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in once again. This has been a really cool little exercise, this, I have to say. For anybody that's thinking about doing content or wanting some different ideas or anything like that, these Q&A things have been absolutely fantastic because it's allowed me to sort of chop up each question and then repurpose the content in different ways and whatnot. So it's really helping us with regards to filling out content ideas and so on and so forth. G'day, Rich. I hope you're well. Now, gang, a couple of questions. First one is a pretty common real estate based question around consumer confusion with all the restrictions and changes and all that sort of stuff. All right, so I will tackle that one and get that one boxed off. So hopefully that will help a few people with regards to a couple of ideas to make sure that you're completely clear with everything that's going on with your consumers. And then the next one, the second question, we've only got the two questions today because the second question is a pretty deep one and it will dig into some mental health topics that a few of you might find a little bit confronting and a little bit consuming. So please be advised that I'm going to open up. I'm going to give you I'm going to tell you a couple of things and open up a few of my experiences for you. And it may resonate with a few of you. So if it does, just take care of yourself. And if you do need to get a little bit emotional or whatever, then feel free to do so. By the way, gang, Lifeline is available at all times for anybody that is struggling with mental health. Please contact the gang there at Lifeline. They're doing an amazing job. So let us go into the real estate side of things first. First question was from Mo Safetli of Calder Real Estate up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Good guy, really good operator, actually. Has been doing really, really well for quite some time now. And he wanted to ask me the question, and he asked me via Instagram, actually. He wanted to ask me the question around consumer confusion when it comes to all these restrictions that have been placed on people, more specifically with buyers, because he messaged me yesterday and said he wanted us to know if I've heard about any other agents that are having confused buyers saying that they aren't allowed to come and look at properties. He's trying to get buyers out. They're sending inquiries, he's trying to get them out. And apparently the buyers aren't wanting to come out because they've been told they're not allowed to. Obviously with stage 3, as it is in Victoria, and with different stages going on in different states, restrictions have gone up and down and chopped and changed a whole lot over the last couple of months, right? So what we need to do, gang, is we need to make sure that we are communicating as clearly as possible, but making sure that the communication isn't just from ourselves. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, basically, the REIV, the Real Estate Institute of Victoria, and the government sites and whatnot, they put out lots of different directives and what have you, where all online and on social media and all that sort of stuff. What you need to do when it comes to trying to relay these restriction changes and what have you is making sure, instead of just creating a piece of content for yourself, for your own brand and for yourself, I actually believe that it's probably way more helpful, not just for yourself in your business, but for the industry as a whole, if you share something that's from an industry body or from the government that actually tells them directly from the horse's mouth as to what's going on with all of these restrictions, okay? So if you do that and then curate over the top of it. So there's a difference between creating content and curating content. Creating content is when you just create something off out the top of your own head organically, and curating content is when you take another piece of content from somewhere else or some information from somewhere else and then add your commentary above it, therefore utilizing their content, but adding your flavor to it on top. That is what I recommend that you do with regards to all these restrictions. Don't try and just do your own sort of branding across all the content that you're doing and what have you. I mean, look, lots of corporate officers will be doing that, granted, but at the same time, it's really handy for the consumers if they're hearing it directly from the horse's mouth. So please get into a habit of doing that, gang. If you're a member of the REIV, they've been putting up some really cool graphics that very, very clearly outline the restrictions that are in place in Victoria. And I'm fairly certain that all of the other bodies, so New South, Queensland, all of the other bodies that have got any sort of restrictions anymore, they all have really cool graphics that you can share with your consumers, okay? But that would be my advice. Make sure you curate the content around restrictions and what people can and can't do, as opposed to creating it yourself and then leaving it potentially either open to interpretation, or your consumers will just think that you might have just put that up to try and get them out of their shell. It's just the nature of the beast, right? So I'd get it from the horse's mouth and share it along the line. That would be my advice with that. So Mo, hopefully that helped, mate. But yes, you're not the only one that is dealing with that confusion. And if any consumers are watching this, by the way, you are allowed to do private inspections. You are allowed, as long as you are from the same household, to be as a family going through a property. Just make sure, though, and this is a best practice, make sure you're not going and bloody touching everything and opening every cupboard door and touching every handle or whatnot. The agents most likely will have gloves on. Allow them to open things for you, please. Okay. Now, so hopefully that one cleared that one up. Now, this next one, like I said, gang, this next one could get a little bit heavy. So viewers' discretion is advised, because we are going to get a little bit deep into mental health now. All right. So this person put this message through to me via Facebook yesterday. And I'm not sure that they want to be disclosed, so we'll keep her anonymous for the time being. Question: what's the most important thing that you focused on when dealing with mental health struggles? What's the most important thing that you've focused on when dealing with mental health struggles? All right, so I'll just do a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a professional in this space. So everything that I'm talking to you about is through my own personal experiences and what I found to be useful. All right. So there isn't medical advice in any way, shape, or form. I have got to be open about that. But these things that we're going to talk about just now certainly helped me. Now, a bit of a backstory for those of you that don't know. Not long after I turned 31, so about 5.5 years ago, I officially started my journey down mental health lane. So I was diagnosed with acute depression and anxiety in about, like I said, it was February 5 years ago. Yeah, so it'll be coming on 5.5 years now. My wife Felicity and I had a bit of a heated debate, shall we say. I made an excuse to head out, went and got some ice cream, came back, and she told me that she thought I might have a bit of postnatal depression. My daughter was about 8 months at the time, okay, or 7 months at the time. Went to the doctors, they rubber stamped me with acute anxiety and depression, but that started a very, very long and at various stages tumultuous trip with mental health and the challenges that come with that. Over the course of the 5 years, we've discovered lots of different things about my past and childhood and things. My parents were amazing parents. My dad, bless him, and my mom were absolutely wonderful parents. So they didn't do a damn thing wrong. But unfortunately, what was created with myself, and they wouldn't have known this, was a real issue around my own identity, who I am internally, and what the world looks like to me. So been a bit of a up and down, a bit of a rocky road when it comes to this mental health journey, and everybody's is. Unfortunately, there's no quick fix. There's no sort of take these pills 3 times a day for 2 weeks and you'll be right as rain. Unfortunately, if you really want to create lasting change within your mental health and your mental capacity, with regards to your emotions and your feelings and all that sort of stuff, you do have to work on it. You have to work on it. Everybody's wiring is very, very different, right? All 7 point whatever it is billion of us, or 8 billion of us, every single human being's wiring within their brain is completely different, or different in one way, shape, or form. So when it comes to medical advice and so on and so forth, that's just based on probability, and you can't knock them for that, because that's all they've got to go on, right? There's no finite answer cure for depression or anxiety or anything like that. So when you feel that you've got it sorted and you sort of feel yourself on the upward curve, something will happen, whether it's an external situation or your interpretation of something, or something says, someone says something to you, whatever the case may be, that sends you back down the other side of that hill and you go back into another trough. So the journey does that, but hopefully your journey will like slowly go up as you're sort of doing those up and downs in the curve, right? Now it's not easy. It's not easy, but the reality of it is we all have to keep the world moving. We all have to keep moving forward with everything, because the world ain't going to stop for us. Just not. It's just not going to stop for us. So it's all well and good saying that, you know, you've got to take a break and, you know, give yourself some space and all that sort of jazz. But, you know, if you've got kids, or if you're running a business, which, you know, obviously a lot of people are in this, having some tough times right now, or, you know, you could be having a challenge at home in your family, in your relationship. These things aren't going to go away because you've been told to just take some space. Okay, it just doesn't happen. It's not practical. And I found that initially, how I dealt with my mental health struggles initially, and I wouldn't recommend this if I were you, I tried to bury it with activity. That was what I did at first, and it's not a good move. Believe me, it's not a good move. So you will find that that when I when I had gone through a real dip in form, what happened to me was I kind of felt like I just wanted to be very insular. Like I didn't want to really talk to anyone. I was very, very quiet. I was very internalized. I was internalizing a hell of a lot of stuff. But I found that the best way to get over that at the time, or so I thought, was to keep involving myself in more and more stuff, because then that would drag me out of my shell and into the light so I could do things. The problem with that, though, and this was the reaction that it created for me, was that, for example, I threw myself into that much charity work. It's not even funny. And I'd go do a charity auction, for example, and I'd feel really good when I'm doing it, and I'd rock and roll, and everybody's like, "Hey, Andy, hey, that's great. You're brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Really appreciate it. Wow, wow, wow. Couldn't have done it without you. Blah, 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 blah." Right? But then I would get in my car and I would feel really, really down. It's kind of like adrenaline just got me up and about just for that short period of time. Then I got back in my car. Sometimes if I do one of these things, I'd get back in my car and I'd start tearing up. I'd start crying, right? Which is not nice. And that's because of the fact that I'd masked it with that degree of adrenaline that allowed me to get through that period of time. And then obviously it crashed. The question isn't showing up on the banner, Andy. It's just showing up as code. All right, Natasha, thank you so much for clearing that up for me. I don't know why that's doing that. Let me just change that. Most important, because it's showing up fine on mine. Sorry guys, bear with us 2 seconds. Slight technical, as sometimes happens on Wendy. Now, what I'm doing with this thing, right, gang, is I am actually chopping these questions up so that people, hopefully that is better for everyone. Yeah, so like Natasha says, like a sugar high that never lasts. It's kind of like, you know, when you're feeling like you're on a bit of a dip in form. Whenever I'm starting to feel myself get ill, I tend to really crave sugar. And that just gives me a temporary boost, and then I drop down. It's nice code though. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I would find myself trying to make up for my downturn in form by masking it with other activities, with lots more activities, and it just was never working out. It was just never working out, and it just made me feel worse. Kind of like a sugar rush, you do tend to feel a lot worse afterwards. Not that I've ever done, hardcore drugs or recreational or anything like that, but I've heard that obviously with an up always comes a down, and that was definitely the case with me with my own chemicals in my brain. So over the journey, what I've done is I've sort of learned within myself some coping mechanisms that work for me. All right. So like I said, this is not medical advice in any way, shape or form. But these are just things that allow me to keep moving forward if I do have a significant slump in form. All right. And it happens to all of us. It really does. And no doubt at some stage, I mean, I've got a really big, strong framework. And I will still get tested every now and then. Of course I will. We all will. Right. It's called life. So in terms of coping mechanisms, one thing that I found was that in order to keep the world turning, so let's deal with the practical stuff first, right? In order to keep my world turning, I literally had to break things down into the smallest of tasks so that I can just, even if all I could do was take the smallest step forward, I'd still moved forward. My world still turned, even just by a tiny, tiny bit. So when you're on form and you're rocking and rolling and everything's going well in life, you can take on loads of different things, right? Not that multitasking is necessarily a great thing, because you can spread your attention out, and that can sometimes be detrimental to your performance. But we generally do take on more than one thing at a time. When you do hit a real slump in form, you really struggle to have any focus at all. It is so difficult to sit down and even start writing. So for example, when I was an agent, just writing an ad was just so difficult, because normally it would only take me like 10, 15, 20 minutes because I knew what I was going to say. I just needed to bang it down. But what I found was I just could not focus in any way, shape or form. So what I had to do was take it one little bit at a time. So for example, and let's use that sort of property description write-up as a bit of an analogy. I would start by just doing the ad for the master bedroom. And then if I feel like I'm going all right, and then I'll add another room, and then I'll add another bit, and then I'll add another bit. So I broke even the writing of an ad down into the separate components so that I could feel like I was making progress. Kind of ties into the whole motivation thing that I mentioned a few days ago with respect to how dopamine works, right? Dopamine works in the way that it starts to come through you. So it can feel like adrenaline sometimes and what have you. It starts to come through you when you feel you're about to accomplish something. Okay. And that is the sort of thing that you need to really try and hone in on when you are in a real bad, rough turn of form. You've really got to try and do your best to notice the very, very small things, the real small wins that go on through your day, because they are the only things that will help you to continue on through your day. Now, it got bad enough for me, and as it does for plenty of people, where getting out of bed is really hard. Like it feels like you've got a permanent hangover, right? Which is no good for anyone. And just peeling the doona off my chest was really difficult, because I felt at times, even though I had this incredible family and so much to be grateful for, when you're that low, when you really go down there, you kind of feel like you haven't got anything to get up for. You haven't got anything to live for. And that is a real bad place to be. So essentially, the getting out of bed is classified as a win when you're that bad when you're that badly down in the dumps, when you're that affected by your mental health problems, getting out of bed is a win. It really is. So what you need to do, gang, is really, depending on how deep down the hole you've gone, you've really got to try and attach yourself to some of these very, very small wins that go on through your day, and break your entire day down as incremental as getting out of bed, getting in the shower, getting out the shower. That one is actually harder than you think. All right. That one is way harder than you think. Unfortunately for me, one of my darkest moments was while I was in the shower. So sometimes getting out the shower is really difficult. But if it is, just get out the shower and you'll feel good. That's another small win. And then eventually you will start to feel a very small degree of momentum, just ever so slightly and ever so quietly, just building up. And with that, you feel that you can maybe take on a slightly bigger step next time. All right. No doubt in my mind that if I hadn't have used that as a bit of a coping mechanism, I'd have been gone. And not only that, I mean, if I hadn't have done anything to myself, then, which I didn't, thankfully, then the wheels would have come off with work, with relationships, with friendships. If you don't just focus on those really, really, really tiny wins, that makes you feel like you've accomplished something, you get a little bit of a rush to your head of some happy chemicals, some happy hormones like dopamine or oxytocin, if you just do something really, really small but really nice for someone. So, for example, one thing I like to do when I was in a bit of a slump was make Flick a cup of tea, because that was a really small thing to do. But I got a little bit of oxytocin because I did something cool for someone else. And that gives you a little bit of a feel-good rush that you've done something for someone else. So realistically, gang, there is no surefire way to get yourself through a situation when you're dealing with mental health struggles. But the biggest thing that I feel anybody needs to focus on is those really, really small wins. I've joked about it on a few occasions about the fact that wearing good underpants is the key to curing depression. But that's the serious part of a very comical way of looking at it, right? The feeling that you get by putting on a nice, comfy pair of underpants, it makes you feel like you've won a little bit, all right? Everything's nice and tucked away and secure and all the rest of it, and it makes you feel a little bit better about life. Makes you feel that, right, that bit's secure, so maybe I can put on my trousers next. Like, it can get that bad, gang. And if you feel that anybody is down that path, or if you yourself are finding it to be a real challenge to do simple things, if you're finding it to be a real challenge to do simple things, then you've got to. That's when you really need to perhaps think about reaching out to someone, even if it is anonymously. So, like, you can do Lifeline, and that's anonymous. If you want it to be, reach out to someone and have a yarn if you're not feeling like you can reach out to someone in your internal network. Okay, that's probably it, gang. It's when the real simple things are a real challenge. That's when you know something's not right. Okay, and all you can do at that point is focus as hard as you possibly can on the smallest wins. If you do that, you should be all right. All being well, you should be okay. Now, on that, things like medications and whatnot, people tend to either bag out medication or they'll take it for 2 weeks and think that they're going to be fine. You've got to have a degree of consistency with that as well. So another thing for me was a focus on how my medications were affecting me at various points. So I went through a couple of different changes, and you've got to work with your doctor, with your GP. You can't just go to your GP and expect them to hand you the answer. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that, because they don't know how you are wired. Only you know how you are wired. They can show you the door, but you know what? Unfortunately, you got to walk through it yourself. It's as simple as that. So focus on the smallest wins in your day. And if you're not sure, if you feel yourself bubbling up, maybe do yourself a favor and just write down all the tiny, tiny little things that make you feel good. And then just by writing them down, it'll sort of imprint into your brain a little bit more. And you might become a lot more consciously aware as to when those little wins happen, when you get those little hits of dopamine or oxytocin if you help someone out, or serotonin, or whatever the case may be. All right. So hopefully, gang, that helped. Hopefully, if anyone's been sort of invoked emotionally by it, again, maybe take that as a bit of a signal that you need to perhaps reach out to someone. If you want to hit me up, like I said, I ain't a psychologist. I'm not a doctor in any way, shape, or form. But if you want to give us a yell, feel free. Send us a DM. You're more than welcome to. Like I said, I can only tell you my experiences and what I've used to help me get out the other end as a much more evolved human being, in my humble opinion anyway. I might still be a bit of a knob, but I feel that I'm a little bit more evolved, to say the least. Lots of us are going through these concerns right now because of business, or the pressure of being at home locked away with your family for however long, or whatever. Or you might be having some big realizations, some big breakthroughs in terms of your way of thinking and whatnot, but that might now not compute with the way that your life is currently set up. And that's going to pose an issue for you, right? So just do your best to talk to someone about it. I have put the Lifeline details on the posts, so please use it if you need to. But like I said, gang, it's been a 5.5 year journey for me. It's no quick fix, but if you're prepared to commit to evolving out of the other end as a much better human being permanently, I can promise you this: it is absolutely worth it. It is absolutely worth it. Through all my stuff and all my journey and all the stuff that I've learned, it's just brought me some of the best people in town and on the planet, right? So just please talk. Just please talk. It's better out than in. It's kind of like a fart, as I keep saying to my daughter. Better out than in. Hate to end on such a crude note like that, but it is. It's better out than in, gang. Promise me. I promise you. You internalize it, it just expands until you pop, and then it's game over in one way, shape, or form in your life. Hopefully not ultimately. Yeah, hope that's helped, gang. Wear good underpants, better out than in. And for God's sake, please talk to someone before someone else potentially ends up regretting your actions. That's the worst thing that can happen. All right, gang. You guys look after yourselves. Take care. Stay healthy. And for God's sake, look after each other. Please do that. That'd be massive if you can. I'm going to be doing a Q&A on mental health for the REIV with Robin Waters and Tony McManus, I think in the next week or two or something. So when that does come out, I'll make sure I spread it out to all and sundry so that you can, we're going to get asked questions and stuff, and you can listen into that if you want, because whilst some of this was going on, ironically, because I was so focused on just making little steps to move forward, my performances at various times actually improved. I actually got better. My listing rate went through the roof, actually, with one downturn in form. I wouldn't recommend you do it, gang, intentionally, but there are some real positives that you can take from doing things like breaking things down into very simple incremental improvements. And there's always silver linings to it all. So, but please, gang, just get yourself through the cloud. All right, guys, take it easy. Love you all. I hope that this Ask Andy thing is helping. We're almost a week through. I really hope it is helping a few people. If it is, great. If it's not, then look, hopefully at one point someone will stumble across it and it will help them out. You take care, gang. Have a good weekend and stay safe.